Welcome to MojoTalks. It's Watch Club. Once again, we're talking about Legion, joined as always, my co-host with the mo-host, Chris Mason.
Ba-bang.
And this week's episode of Legion was Season 2, Episode 7, Chapter 15, directed by Charlie McDowell, who you might know as the director of The One I Love and The Discovery. And written once again by Nathaniel Halpern and Noah Hawley. Nailed it.
Nailed it.
Before we begin, I just want to give a quick shout out to some of our lovely commenters.
Yeah, you guys are great.
You guys have been killing it in the comments, giving us stuff, predictions, and
essays. We're reading those.
We're reading them, and some of them are really great. I just want to shout out Riley Vision, Climax D Absurdum, Clint Holmes, and specifically, I want to shout out Platonic Rainey, who talked about how David's potential for villainy was explored last episode after Amy's death. And, well, we're going to talk a little bit about that, but you were kind of right on the money.
He definitely was. I think that he might be suffering a similar affliction to us.
Yes.
Justin and I were talking about how we might be infected with oil chicken.
Yeah.
The other day, 2 days ago, I was playing Witcher 3, and I collected a new card, the cow card in Gwent, and I thought, oh, the cow's back. We saw it in the lab, and it had the oil on it, and now, what's the connect? No, that's the wrong universe, wrong medium, wrong genre.
I've experienced a similar phenomenon. I've been watching the new season of Westworld, which features many a hexagon, and I keep thinking of Division 3 and trying to make connections, but I keep remembering, oh, these are two different shows altogether.
Yeah.
So I'll have to try and deal with those oil chickens. I don't think it'll be as easy as just pulling it out of my head the way David did it, but I'll figure it out. We'll get him out of there.
Well, good luck with that.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the big standout moments from this episode.
Indeed.
So for me, I was really, really like overjoyed a little bit in a kind of villainous way to see Farouk chew the scenery in this episode.
Yeah.
And there were two scenes where he really got to do that. One was at the beginning of the episode where he encounters David and they're really going at it. David's barking at him and Farouk is just calm, cool, and collected, speaking many languages. He's like the suavest villain I've seen in a long time.
He literally sends David back to the kiddie table.
A little bit, yeah. That was a great line,
a
too.
little bit,
yeah,
literally.
It literally does, yeah. That was a great line. And there was the other scene with, Future Syd and Farouk, where he's talking yet again about the blue-eyed, white-skinned enemies that have come. And you suggested that maybe, I was thinking more superheroes and the Professor X of it all.
I'm wondering if he's actually referring to the Crusades, like if we're led to believe that he's been around so long and what the Knights Templar were actually after.
Right.
Or was the Shadow King. They were trying to come in and conquer him with their swords.
I would understand why you'd be so frustrated if that was the case. You don't want to necessarily have Templars coming after you.
Or just a little annoyed.
Yeah, ticked off, if anything.
I think he could just let it, because it's not like he has a problem with guys in armor. Like, boop, you're gone.
Bye-bye.
He just lets that feed his righteous indignation.
He's like, who do these people think they are?
Yeah, come on.
I'm
the Shadow King.
I'm the king.
But what's most notable about that scene is now there's a new alliance, right?
A dangerous one at that.
Future Syd and the Shadow King.
Who knows what'll come of that unholy alliance?
I mean, we're led to believe that he saw David being this world-destroying villain in Syd's future, right? When he read her mind. But what did he really see that could actually change his mind? Because if we know one thing about the Shadow King, it's that he's got his own agenda, and nothing changes his plan. Even if he says he's going to have an alliance with David, okay, we'll play nice. No, he's not. He's still going to go and kill his sister or body snatch his sister.
So far, making a deal with the Shadow King has worked out for exactly 0 people. So Future Syd better watch her back.
Yep.
You were a big fan of the Syd and Lenny.
That's right. Syd then later on goes and confronts Lenny in the cell, right? And I mean, this doesn't move the story forward a lot, but I always love to see Aubrey Plaza in this show. Yep. We see that she's still dealing with the effects of being body morphed. Did we settle on a term yet for that? Body morphed.
Body morphed is great.
Yeah, she's being body morphed. Or psychic morphed, I don't know, into Amy. She's still dealing with that. Syd confronts her, and Lenny plays the card, which to me is just so Lenny, because it's so manipulative addict, which is like plays the victim card, plays the I know you'll be able to relate to this, Syd card, and is just awful, right? When she says that she's the victim. But here's what I think that scene is setting us up for, setting the audience up for. Syd confronts Lenny, says, I know that you being here is really just the Shadow King trying to distract us. So, and that's true, even Lenny pretty much agrees. But later on in the episode, when we see Granny, who we'll talk about in a bit, is this new threat just more smoke and mirrors from the Shadow King? I don't know, right?
Another delusion?
Yeah, is it a delusion that he's created? We don't know. We don't know what to think about Granny, largely because of this scene.
Right. It's a lot to take in, but again, Aubrey Plaza, fantastic, devilishly, twisting up words and spewing them out. I guess that's one way of saying delivering lines. We also got a pretty awesome showdown in Division 3 with the Vermilion army.
Carrie, the Vermilion. It's not the vocoder twins or vocoder triplets, as one commenter suggested. It's a vocoder army. Now. I want to say Legion, but that's the wrong.
They got some pretty creepy scenes between crawling under the sheets in Autonomy's bed and all that stuff was
voguing down the hallway,
behind Clark.
In Clark's dream, and Clark is like, this is normal. I'm okay with this.
Well, when you work at Division 3, I'm sure it would be interesting to see what would freak Clark out at this point.
Yeah.
But that was great, just seeing Carrie with the little axe thing.
A little hatchet, yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty good choreographed scene, but ultimately it was kind of a misdirection. I was fully on board with the idea that Division 3 was run by oil chickens, and I bought into the delusion, as I'm sure most people did, until the rug was pulled out from under us.
That's right, they pulled the basket right off our heads.
Oh, right, yeah.
Right? It was a very great reveal. We're set up to believe that Admiral Baskethead is like some malevolent force. He's sending the vocoders army after people. We've seen him as an oil chicken, but then he takes off his basket, and what do we see? He's like a scared and scarred old man. Beautiful reveal. Everyone is just deluded into thinking that he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
So that leads to something that I want to talk about. So finally, David confronts the grown-up oil chicken, the oil chicken prime, if you will, and in the restaurant, and then in his mind, and puts it in a jar and folds it in on itself. And I'm thinking like, hey, this is a cool scene, but it was kind of unsatisfying. Right. I was left like this. This doesn't quite feel right. Reason, because this is a villain that we've been seeing throughout the thing.
Since episode 1 it was established.
Yeah, that's right. And then as soon as David finds it, he becomes an oil chicken exorcist and plucks it out of their skulls, crunch, explodes the oil chicken prime. That's the end of the resolution. But I'm okay with it for a few reasons. Number one, it was a cool scene.
Yeah, well shot. The red was very vibrant and interesting. I haven't seen the astral plane dealt with in that way yet.
We saw David being a very David Haller badass, like
confident,
not confident, but still not quite,
right?
And so that's number one. Number two, it's a sign of his power, like a measure of how powerful he is. And I feel like we need that. We need to be reminded of that. We need to be demonstrated that, because it's not like we know he's so tall that he can leap buildings in a single bound.
Right.
The power is much more abstract than that. So it helps to have something concrete. And three, most importantly, it leaves room for Granny, right? So who should we talk about Granny now?
Let's get into Granny a little bit. So the Granny of it all. I don't know necessarily that much about this character, but we can kind of pick at like things that we do know, right? One thing majorly being that she's inside the tree computer that we see Tanami plugged into, which has a direct link, it seems like, to Admiral Fukuyama.
Yep.
So whatever this force is, it has access to basically all of Division 3. We got a glimpse at what a malevolent Fukuyama looks like in this episode, despite it being a delusion. But what happens when that actualizes and becomes the reality for our heroes?
I think you just summed it up pretty well, you know, but the bigger question here is it too late in the season to be introducing what seems to be a new big bad? Now, granted, it might just be smoke and mirrors, you know, more distraction from Farouk, but it might be a separate entity. You know, we thought that the catalyst was from Farouk, but no, that was the monk, so that was something separate. Maybe it's another separate thing here.
Right.
We've already established that Division 3 has multiple targets throughout the world that they're looking after, so maybe this is just another target. Maybe Legion is going to become this surreal, supernatural, procedural.
Interesting.
I don't know.
Villain of the week style.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. I think one of the things that they're dealing with right now is based on the fact that this season is significantly longer than last season. I mean, last season they had a season order of 8 episodes. So if we had the same season order, we'd be going into the finale right now.
Yeah.
And this season even got longer with the announcement that they were going to do an 11th episode after they were scheduled to do 10. And there's been like this conversation surrounding like superheroes on TV, mainly with the Netflix seasons of shows, that these seasons go on for too long and they're often filled with a lot of bloating and extra stuff that we don't necessarily need. Legion falls victim to that in a very different way. Rather than like focusing on stuff that people don't care about, they can introduce really interesting elements. The problem is, do those elements get like the short end of the stick because there's just so much other stuff going along? Are we going to get the best Granny that we could have gotten being introduced in episode 7 than we would have getting introduced in episode 3, let's say?
Well, two things. I think that one, we don't know when Granny will pay off. You know, for all we know, Granny's going to be around longer than Farouk.
Interesting.
You know,
That's true.
That's one. Two, in terms of like the structure of the season, if you're looking at this from like a traditional screenplay, story plotting sort of way, at about the 3/4 mark, that's when you want like the climax to happen, the resolution to start happening.
Right.
So we're not quite there yet. If it's 11 episodes, we're almost there. It's not too late for things to be piling on, problems to be piling on.
Right.
You know, and so maybe that's what Granny is. You know, maybe she's another problem being piled on. And I mean, traditional conventional wisdom would have it that it's not too late in the season to
But I think you bring up a really good point in that, like, if you're beating out a season of Legion the same way that you would a typical season of television,
Right.
at this point in the season, you'd have some kind of idea of what the end game looks like. I have no idea what these last few episodes are going to look like.
Dude, we never know what the next scene is going to look like.
Right, and I think
you know?
that's a testament to the writing on the show. They don't get enough credit.
That's
They don't get enough credit.
They're always being confused for 19th century
Yeah, that's
novelists.
right.
Is that when Nathaniel Hawthorne was writing? I don't know.
Probably, who knows?
So I don't have any predictions per se. Do you?
Not necessarily predictions. I think we got into it a little bit with the Granny stuff,
That's
but yeah,
right.
in terms of large theories, I got nothing.
Well, before we wrap this up, I do have another pitch. So here's
I've been waiting all week for this.
Here's a little thing you might have missed. When David comes into the restaurant, or the cafeteria restaurant where the Oil Chicken Prime is, you see the name of the restaurant on the door for, I think, the first time, and it's La Barca, which is Spanish and Italian, I believe, for the boat. The boat. So, you know, the boat's in the countertop. It's a theme of the restaurant. It's not just an accident.
Very specific theme.
But here's what I think they could make a show out of. Legion meets the Love Boat, right? So weekly stories about people who come to eat at this restaurant, and the theme of the restaurant is you're shrunken down using a mutant power, like Ant-Man for other people, and you eat on these little boats, you know? Kind of like the restaurant at the end of the universe in Hitchhiker's Guide.
Right.
Anyway, so that's all I got. But hey, I'll take a development deal.
At this point, you're
FX.
pitching shows to FX at a rate unprecedented, so they got to be taking notice at some
That's
point.
right. I mean, there is space for creators, and I'm a creator.
Yeah.
I could be.
Listen, I'm all in for your Love Boat spinoff.
Thanks, buddy.
Legion times Love Boat. I'm in.
Exciting and new. Come aboard.
So that's going to do it for this week's episode of Watch Club. Be sure to subscribe to MojoTalks. Check out the other Watch Club series about Westworld every Monday. And from Chris and I, keep being weird, guys.
Bye.